My name is Jasmine Faith Pikinisha, and I'm going to discuss about the basics of purposive communication. So, what exactly is communication? The most simple definition is that communication is each act of transmitting information or any exchange of information between two entities. Good communication is not just a process of transferring information from one entity to another. It's an art of listening or reading the information, understanding it, processing it, and then transferring it. There is a huge amount of effort that goes into communication. Gestures, tone of voice, body language, and spoken language are some of the important aspects of communication. If the other person is unable to understand any of these factors, then the process fails. Communication is a process, and there are six elements of a communication process. The first one, which is the sender, is a person who encodes and sends the message to the expected receiver through an appropriate channel. The second element is the message. The message is the content of a communication and may contain verbal, nonverbal, and symbolic language. Perceptions and personal factors of the sender and receiver may distort these elements and the intended outcome may not be achieved. For example, the same message may be communicated or perceived differently by two individuals. The third one is a channel. A channel is a medium through which message is sent or received between two or more people. Several channels can be used to send or receive the message, that is seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, and tasting. While selecting channels of communication, several factors must be considered. Availability of channel, suitability, types of receivers, types of message, preference of sender and receiver, communication skills of the sender, cost, and so on. The fourth element is the receiver. A receiver is an individual or a group of individuals intended to receive, decode, and interpret the message sent by the sender or source of message. The fifth element of the communication process is the feedback. A feedback is a return message sent by the receiver to the sender. It is the most essential element of the communication process as it shows that the receiver has understood the primary message sent by the sender and the communication process is now considered complete and successful. Lastly is the sixth element, which are the confounding elements. These elements are not a direct part of the flow of the communication process, but influences the communication process significantly directed. These elements are interpersonal variables of the sender and the receiver, and the environment where the communication process takes place. In communicating, we should always bear in mind to be ethical. Ethics is the study of the principles of conduct that apply to an individual or a group, and ethical communication enhances human worth and dignity by fostering truthfulness, fairness, responsibility, personal integrity, and respect for self and others. I highly believe that unethical communication endangers the quality of all communication and consequently the well-being of individuals and the society in which we live. Therefore, we should always give attention to these 10 ethical guidelines for communication. Number 1, abide by relevant laws. Number 2, abide by the appropriate professional code of conduct. Number 3, abide by your organization's policy on social media. Number 4, take advantage of your employees' ethics resources. Number 5, tell the truth, like an expression, but nowadays, this ethical guideline is taken for granted because employers mostly ask their employees to lie for the sake of the business or company, like lying about the product or about those their competitors, which is obviously unethical. Number 6, don't mislead your readers. Misleading statement is a statement that invites or even encourages the reader to think a false conclusion, which is ethically no better than lying. Number 7, use design to highlight important ethical and legal information, as courts have found that information that is buried in footnotes or printed in very small type. Number 8, Be clear, because your responsibility is to write as clearly as you can to help your audience understand what you are saying. Example is if you are writing a product warranty, you should make it as simple and straightforward as possible. Don't hide behind big words and complicated sentences. Number 9, avoid discriminatory language that discriminates against people because of their sex, religion, ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, or physical or mental abilities. Number 10, acknowledge assistance from others and don't suggest that you did all the work yourself because if you didn't, and always cite your sources. Communication barriers. There are many reasons why communications may fail, and these are the barriers. There exist many barriers to communication, and these may occur at any stage in the communication process. Barriers that will mainly lead your message becoming distorted, and you therefore risk wasting both time and money by causing confusion and misunderstanding. That's why you really need to overcome these barriers to convey a clear and concise message. Some common barriers to effective communications include number 1, the use of jargon. Jargons are overcomplicated or unfamiliar terms. Number 2, emotional barriers. Number 3, lack of attention, interest, distraction, or relevance to the receiver. Number 4, differences in perceptions and viewpoints. Number 5, physical disabilities such as hearing problems or speech difficulties. Physical barriers to nonverbal communication. Number 7, language differences and the difficulty in understanding unfamiliar accents. Number 8, expectations and prejudices which may lead to false assumptions or stereotyping is highly significant as people often hear what they expect or want to hear rather than what is actually said and jump to incorrect conclusions. Communicating across cultures. This topic is highly significant because I believe that there will be a time to everyone's life experience that we need to communicate with individuals from other cultural backgrounds as our society and our workforce are becoming increasingly diverse both culturally and linguistically. As businesses nowadays are exporting more goods and services. As a result, professionals often communicate with these individuals and many of whom are non-native speakers of English, both in the United States and abroad, and with speakers of other languages who read text translated from English into their own languages. Which means effective communication requires an understanding of culture, the beliefs, attitudes, and values that motivate people's behavior. And also understanding the cultural variables on the surface and understanding the cultural variables beneath the surface. Understanding the cultural variables on the surface. Communicating effectively with people from another culture requires understanding a number of cultural variables that lie on the surface or on the surface. You need to know first what language or language to use. You also need to be aware of political, social, religious, and economic factors that can affect how readers will interpret your document. Understanding these factors is not an exact science, but it does require that you learn as much as you can about the culture of those you are addressing. A brief example is an American manufacturer of deodorant launched an advertising campaign in Japan in which a cute octopus applied the first product under each of its 8 arms. But the campaign failed because in Japan, an octopus is viewed as having 8 legs, not 8 arms, according to Baton in 1999. In International Technical Communication, Nancy Alcock in 1995 described 7 major categories of cultural variables that lie on the surface or on the surface. The first category is political. This category relates to trade issues and legal issues. For example, some countries forbid import of certain foods and chemicals, and laws about intellectual property, product safety, and liability. The second category is economic. A country's level of economic development is a critical factor. In many developing countries, most people cannot afford devices for accessing the internet. The third category is linguistic. In some countries, English is taught to all children starting in grade school, and in other countries, English is seen as a threat to the national language. The orientation of text on a page and in a book is not from left to right. In addition to these basic differences, you need to understand that of other factors. For instance, the United States is the only major country that has not adopted the metric system, whereas Americans use periods to separate whole numbers from decimals, and commas to separate thousands from hundreds. Much of the rest of the world reverses this usage. Understanding the cultural variables beneath the surface. Focus on individuals or groups. Some cultures, especially in the West, value individuals more than groups. The typical Western employee doesn't see her or his identity as being defined with the organization for which he or she works. Distance between business life and private life. In some cultures, especially in the West, many people separate their business lives from their private lives. When the workday ends, they are free to go home and spend their time as they wish. Number three, distance between ranks. In some cultures, distance in power and authority between workers within an organization is small. This small distance is reflected in a close working relationship between supervisors and subordinates. Number four, need for details to be spelled out. Some cultures value full, complete communication. The written text must be comprehensive, containing the information a reader needs to understand. Number five, attitude toward uncertainty. In some cultures, people are comfortable with uncertainty. They communicate less formally and rely less on written policy. In many cases, they rely more on a clear set of guiding principles as communicated in a code of conduct or a mission statement.